I'm Professor Nalepa. Today I'll be talking with FuzZ, the nicest guy making the nastiest beats.
If I was in a room of a bunch of people wearing a blue shirt, I would just automatically put on a red shirt. I'm FuzZ, also known as David Street. When I finally got old enough, middle school era, where it's I'm gonna listen to music now, I just turned on to K-rock because that was in the late '90s,
default.
that was what kids listened to. So I was this is what I'm supposed to be listening to. So I listened to alternative, Get My Stained on, you know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean. We've all been there.
We've all been there. We've all been there. And then as soon as I kind of figured out what was up, I started getting into older stuff like classic rock and then psychedelic stuff. And it wasn't even until sophomore year of college, I was at this point I was 20 or 19 that I even really started to understand and get into hip hop. I watched that movie Scratch when I was a sophomore in college, and it completely changed my whole the idea of you listen to a whole long jam and then you take the one bar that's the dopest part and then you loop that, and that's what hip hop is. I was that one idea just blew my mind. I was okay, I finally understand. I understand what hip hop is, and it's dope, and I like it. And I started going to record stores, and I wanted to kind of be a vinyl DJ, DJ Shadow and Cut Chemist. I got into them kinda, and the easiest transition into hip hop is scratching, because you're oh, that's musicianship, and that kind of led me in.
So do you scratch? Do you cut? I've never. I don't know if I've ever heard that.
I tried a little bit, but it was kind of a day late and a dollar short. You know what I mean? It was fun for a little bit, but it was just kind of for fun. I would never do it in front of people. But
it's a different skill set, I think, altogether.
Yeah.
And but I know you have a lot of really fresh post disco, and so when did you start getting into this sort of this electronic, the post-disco records from the 80s.
I started back when I was in high school with classic rock and stuff, and then since then I've been evolving as music evolves. I got really into rock, and then I started getting more psychedelic and then I got into kind of funk, because that was what happened, back then. And then from funk I got into disco, and then from disco I got into post-disco and boogie funk, and now I'm starting to get into weird 80s new wave and stuff like that, and I'm even starting to get into the 90s stuff. I'm starting to understand the classic drum and bass. I love catching people off guard, and I think that especially with this generation, dubstep, that's what it's about. It's about setting one tone and then smacking them in the face. met this guy Derek Doneen when I was in college, and my best friend was this guy Eric Medina, and we were all pretty much listening to the same type of music, and we were all Mars Volta fans. And so I would like be wearing my Mars Volta shirt, and like Derek would be like skateboarding by and would stop and be like, "Oh, you like the Volta? Like, all right, man, Volta head, tight." You know, so we would go to shows together like freshman year. And then he was like way more into the Mars Volta than I was, which I didn't even think was possible. So he was like, hey, the keyboardist is playing here, and like the bass player is playing with his side project here. And so we would start to like have fun, like, you know, going on little adventures, checking out different venues around LA and checking out their side projects. And this one night, it just happened to be the first month that Lowen opened. It was October 2006.
Oh wow, so you got in early.
Yeah, I went to this club, and I actually got pulled over by the police on the way over there. It was like a whole like horrible night, but I got to Low End at the end of the night, and I saw it was like the keyboardist side project, Free Moral Agents, and then it was Big Sur, which is the bass player's side project, and they like sold weed at the venue, and like and the venue was like amazing. The sound was awesome. Everybody was super cool. And I remember just being like blown away, like, what is this? And people were saying like, oh, this is just starting, you know. And so me and my friends just started going back, like me and Eric and Derek. And so we kept going back like every Wednesday. And they were playing like really cool like old psychedelic stuff, which is what I was into at that point. And then also like scratch hip hop, which is like what I was getting into at that point. So for some reason it was just like the perfect mesh, like, I don't know, it just matched what I was into exactly at that moment. And so I just kept going back, and they just kept turning me on to newer stuff. And then eventually I started to understand the beat stuff and get kind of like intrigued by it. Right after Reset came out, and 2007, Lotus told me, he's like, I hate how, you know, modern music, like it's all like pretty much the same thing, just different like BPMs or like a different synth sound. And he's like we're all trying to go wah 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 wah, you know. And he's like I just hate the barriers. He's like, you know, he's like, I listen to house, I listen to techno, I listen to hip hop, I listen to, he's like, you know, it's all like pretty much the same thing. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, like, because electronic music had been around forever, and I had just been like, not, you know, I just hadn't known about it and hadn't gotten it. So now that I was like, that kind of just opened my eyes, like, yeah, there's a whole world out there of people that I could be learning from, and it's like mysterious. Like, I wonder what people have done up to this point. And so then the nerding out began.
Started working, you did a couple interns, right? You worked.
I did a couple internships. I interned for Village Roadshow for a little bit, but I was just like, what am I doing? Like, music is what I love. So I started interning at Squeaky Clean. When I first interned there, I'm like a synthesizer geek, as you know.
Oh my god.
And his synthesizer collection, well, him and Brent's and Rusty's, I guess.
Yeah.
Is disgusting. I would stay late, and they would just let me go in the A rig, you know, and just hit record on Pro Tools on the HD thing, and all these synthesizers were already hooked up to everything, and I would just like mess around with them for literally like an hour or something, and they would just like laugh at me, like they would like be coming in and just see me like all like geeking out, like with some like horrible noise, you know, like turning a bunch of knobs and stuff. And I would just record like 20, 30 minutes of these synths, and then I would like write stuff at home on MIDI and then bring the MIDI files in and just like be like, I wonder what it sounds like if this Prophet played this, you know, and like record like. So they were really nice, and I actually learned like a lot from them about music and just like production and different techniques. They gave me like their whole sample library, which really helped me out. And
then Sam heard one of your tracks, right? You were up with him on like a snowboarding adventure.
I went up to Tahoe with him, and he's like, let me hear some of your tracks, man. So I just kind of hit play, and at first he was like making fun of it, like he was like, oh, this sounds like some like spa music. He's like, it's not like I'm kind of relaxed right now. Like I want to get a back massage. And everybody's kind of like laughing a little bit, and then like the beat kicked in. And he gets like all quiet, and he's like, I like this a lot, man. And like all serious, like completely changes, and I was like, oh, thank you.
And they put out your record.
They put out my record.
So that's big spin.
Yeah, they technically now have a label, and I'm on their label, so it's nice. Anytime I sense that too many people are doing something, I get really turned off and I just go a different direction. It's now been like a good like 3-4 year period where it's just been nothing but dubstep, and I've had like enough of it. I'm sick of it. It's not interesting anymore. It's not catching anybody off guard. Everybody knows exactly when that's gonna kick in, and they know exactly what to expect, and no one is surprised, you know. And that's not what I want. And I've always liked weird synthesizer noises, just weird sounds, and so I've just been kind of trying to experiment with that. And also, you know, in looking back in history, like I don't know, I've never heard any like slow electronic music, like really slow. And the reason why is because I think electronic music has always been made for dance music, because it's on the grid, and so it's good for dancing and it's good for having that beat. I wanted to make slow like music that that people weren't expecting, like grooves that like you have to think about, where you hear it and you're like, whoa, like it makes you feel a completely different way. And so I've been making stuff like as low as like 50 BPM, 55 BPM, 60 BPM, 65 BPM. And it's this new like, I just haven't heard anybody do it yet. And it's sad that like the only way you can do something different is by doing a different BPM. But I think it's just kind of opening my mind. I'm just trying to take a bunch of left turns. Find me at facebook.com/FuzzElectro, twitter.com/FuzzDavid, and soundcloud.com/FuzzDavid. Thank you.